Where's Waldo? And still, the interest in religion continued to rise. Everywhere in our cities and villages, not only in our schools but at the street corners, learned and ignorant, great and small, are discussing the gravest mysteries, wrote the bishops of France to the Pope in 1140. Crikey, people discussing religion. The nerve. One of those taking an interest was Peter Valdez. An early biographer, Stephen of Bourbon, that's a place, not a reference to his drinking habits, described Valdez as someone who was not well educated, but on hearing the Gospels was anxious to learn more precisely what was in them. And when around 1170 he learned what was in them, he took it literally. Leaving enough money to care for his wife and family, he sold whatever else he owned and gave the money to the poor. Valdez took the Bible to the people. He commissioned Bible translations into French and went out preaching to whoever would listen, to the need for purity and holiness, and generally doing what Jesus said. Naturally, the authorities ordered him to shut up. Valdez took his case to the Pope, who approved of his voluntary poverty, but banned him and his followers from speaking anywhere but in a church. Since no clergy were ever going to invite him in, this amounted to a complete ban. Valdez refused. He and his followers carried on their unofficial preaching, with the result that they were excommunicated and driven out of Lyon. They became known as the Waldensians. The Waldensians were eventually driven from France, but far from being destroyed, they went underground and spread, establishing centres in Germany and Central Europe. By the time they emerged again, they found that the Protestant Reformation had nicked most of their best ideas. But they established the Chiesa Evangelica, or Evangelical Church, in Piedmont, and even travelled to America, where in the late 19th century some Italian Waldensians established the town of Valdese, North Carolina. Redbeards and Lionhearts. In 1187, a Kurdish Muslim called Salah al-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub, best known in Europe as Saladin, surrounded Jerusalem with his troops. The Crusaders held out as long as they could, but in the end they were forced to negotiate a surrender, and the Muslims re-entered Jerusalem. Naturally, they looted and pillaged and raped... Oh, hang on, no, they didn't. Sorry, force of habit. Saladin ensured that not a house was looted and not a single inhabitant killed. He offered Frankish Christians their freedom at 10 pence a shot, and there was even a special bulk buy offer for a group of peasants. And then, against the advice of his treasurers, he let a load of poor families leave anyway. Most of the soldiers were sold into slavery. Having reclaimed the Dome of the Rock, he allowed the church to reopen for pilgrimage, and even invited Jews from Ashkelon to return to the city. The Western Church was outraged. If there's one thing worse than an intolerant Muslim, it's a tolerant one. The Pope was so shocked by events that he promptly died. His successor launched an immediate crusade, and a truly awe-inspiring force was assembled. An all-star cast, featuring Emperor Frederick Barbarossa of the Holy Roman Empire, King Philip of France, and Richard the Lionheart of England, a man who's had probably the greatest PR in all British royal history. Frederick, showing that tenacious inability to learn that always characterised the Crusades, led his army through Byzantium and into Asia Minor, where the heat and drought were so intense that the German soldiers were reduced to making a drink out of horse manure. Later on, of course, the Germans perfected this method and successfully marketed it as Liebfraumilch. That's not literal. I take no offence to that. Finally, they came upon a great river, which Frederick plunged into in order to lead his horse across, and drowned. In hindsight, it may have been a mistake trying to cross the river with his armour on. Frederick's corpse was preserved in a large barrel of vinegar, making him more gherkin than German, nor was he the last Holy Roman Emperor to be pickled. Most of the army went home. The rest continued to fight their way across Anatolia and then into Syria, where they were joined by Richard and Philip, who had selected to travel business class, i.e. by boat. They took the port of Acre, but then Saladin started to cheat in the battles by being a very good general, which is not cricket. Richard won some victories, but despite the fact that the Crusaders had heavy armour and hearts of oak and all that sort of stuff, they could never hold on. In the end, Richard signed a truce with Saladin, left the keys of Jerusalem under the mat, and went home. The Third Crusade was over. Richard actually never returned to England. He was captured in Austria, then ransomed, and subsequently spent the rest of his life in Normandy fighting the French. Despite being born in Oxford, he spoke no English. That's why his motto, Dieu est mon droit, which is still the motto of the British royal family, is in French. In the entire 10 years of his reign, he's probably only in England for 6 months. A true English hero. He has featured in many films and even in computer games, such as Assassin's Creed, where he speaks English with a French accent. Perhaps the best film portrayal is by George Sanders in King Richard and the Crusaders, which includes Virginia Mayo as Lady Edith, delivering the historically authentic line, "War, war, that's all you ever think of, Dick Plantagenet." There you go.